My name is Maria Gonzalez. I am Karina's older sister. And I do a lot of volunteer work with Immigrant Allies. I'm a co-organizer. And we kind of came up with Immigrant Allies a little bit after the raids. Like Karina mentioned, our mother actually was detained in 2006 during the raid. At the time I was 17 and you were like, what, 11? And we had younger siblings all the way down to 3, yeah. So we kind of faced the raid on our own as children. We had an aunt that lived here in Marshalltown, and she was kind of our support system. But really, if it wasn't for the community, our church, like Karina mentioned, the library, Joa, they were all there to help us through it. But then we kind of realized there's nothing in place in the community-wise to help immigrants that are going through the same thing. Either educationally-wise, having a plan, what happens during a raid, as well as sharing our story. My mom brought me here to the United States when I was 3 years old, and I was undocumented. And so was she, and so was my brother. We lived in Marshalltown. We've lived in Marshalltown for almost 27 years now. This has been our home the entire time. So it's important to share that information with the community as well with the world, because when we hear the news and see the news, we're labeled as criminals, as you mentioned, and as lawbreakers, and they don't realize that we are the people that are helping our community. I also work with Micah. I work with families that have been affected by the tornado. And prior to that, I was an early Head Start teacher along with Karina and my sister. So these are the people that are helping the community, that are driving the community. You don't realize their background. I've always shared that I was undocumented, and it came to a shock to people because your English is so great and you're so Americanized. I wouldn't be able to tell that you're, undocumented. So it's always been very important for us to share our story. As of April of this year, I no longer had DACA. My husband applied for me. My husband is a citizen, and I was able to obtain my residency. But again, if it wasn't because of his legal status, I would have never been able to obtain mine. So this community to us is very important. The diversity, as we've spoken, but also to teach our children where we come from and how we build our community is very important. Both my husband and I are volunteers, besides our jobs and Immigrant Allies and school and trying to keep each other alive. We like to volunteer, and we teach that to our children. And my husband's actually trying to join the police reserve and the police department.
He's on the council list for Mondays.
So we're trying to build this community and teach that to our children. And my kids are very proud to say that the family is from Mexico, that they're Mexican, but they're also very proud to say that they're Iowan. And I've been quoted to say we're as Iowan as the cornfields and corn, and we're here to stay. And we've grown our roots and we planted them, and we want to build this community.
Love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. Really powerful. Thank you.
I'm Joa LaVille. I actually work as the youth services manager at the public library, and then am a co-organizer with Maria of Immigrant Allies. I also, to echo what everyone has said about, we raised 2 daughters in town that are adults now, and I was thrilled to move here. Actually coming up on my 20th year at the library in like 4 days or something. And to be able to move and live in Iowa and benefit from everything Iowa offers, but also with a diverse community, that's really the best of both worlds. Immigrant Allies kind of, for me, my desire to work on that came out of knowing, families like Maria's, but also because as an educator at the library, I always am telling kids, work hard and study and be a good person and you'll get ahead. And I realized when I learned about the plight of so many Dreamer students I had, I was kind of lying to them because really they were hitting a brick wall. So I guess right now one of my biggest concerns is that we've seen firsthand in our community how much DACA just opened up the world, not only for the person and their family, but to allow the person to give back in ways they never could before.
Yeah.
And so I'm very concerned not only about what's going to happen in the Supreme Court this fall with the current DACA holders, but also what we're seeing now with the students that are in the exact same boat that Maria and her classmates were when they emerged as leaders in Iowa calling for the DREAM Act. So, we need a lot of reforms, but, my heart is really kind of started with these kids, and we need to get, it's an urgent need that needs to be fixed yesterday.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, Joe. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lisa Stevens, and I work for the public school system, Marshalltown Schools, and there's two things I would like to share that I think are really impacting Marshalltown schools and students and staff. And the one being similar to what you just sadly experienced in El Paso is the fact that there's this fear, right? There's a fear that school isn't a safe place. And what we've done is try to be proactive in that as a community. And we have a community response, emergency response plan. So we are today, again, sharing with our staff, spending valuable time working with our community that supports our students to tell them, this is what's gonna happen. This is what we guarantee. If there should be an emergency, a raid, a crisis in the community, this is how we're going to respond as a system. We've let our parents know that. We've let our staff know that. We're going to take care of the kids because that's our most important possession. And I'm sure you're going to have similar situations happening in El Paso.
Absolutely.
And then on top of that, we are really focusing with ESSA and in public education on not so much just worrying about student achievement, but thinking about the social emotional development of these kids and the trauma that kids are living in right now and working in, and our staff too, because they want to support kids. And so all of these community organizations help us, but now we are also having to put that on the plates of teachers every day about how to keep kids safe. What happens with gun violence in our schools? What happens when these things happen in our country and the kids hear about it on social media? Do they feel safe? Who's there for the kids? And so we are working to build a social emotional curriculum for them, for teachers and for the kids, so that they feel like they have the tools to be able to feel safe in our community, be an Iowan, whatever that may be for them, as well as feel safe being, whatever their nationality may be. So those are two things that I think are really high on our plates, is trying to prioritize, continuing to improve our academics, but also recognizing that there's a lot of stuff going out there in the world that is sitting heavy with our students and their families.
Yep.
And we have to acknowledge that and work on it. And we need politicians to figure it out.
Yes.
We need solutions so that we don't have to spend our time teaching, table drills because there's intruders in our buildings, or comforting and supporting students because there's one more crisis happening in our community that they've heard about.
That's right. Yeah.
And
Excellent.
the third, can I say one more thing? The other thing that's a really great point of pride that I just want everyone to know too is that we're one of, I believe, 6 now or 7 in the state who still offers a dual language Spanish-English program.
Yeah.
So that's very common in big cities like El Paso, but not so much in communities in Iowa. And so our district is committed to and has with this system for almost 20 years. So our kids can start in kindergarten and go all the way through 12th grade and earn seal of biliteracy at the end and be the next mayors and the next whatever it may be, and go to bilingual or biliterate in the process and bicultural.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mark Smith, let me limit it to 3 comments here. First of all, the older I get, the more convinced I am that the worst sin we can commit is to teach a child to hate, whether that's characteristics of themselves or characteristics of others. The second point is in December of 2000, shortly after I got elected, then Governor Vilsack pulled together a small amount of money, I think it was $50,000 for 3 communities in Iowa, Marshalltown being one of them, that helped us a great deal with the acculturation issues. So even small amounts of money help communities adjust to changing populations. The third thing is that I firmly believe that we can take strong stances and compassionate stances on the issues of immigration and win elections. I've done that 10 times here in this community.
I think everyone holding office or running for office needs to hear that, and doing the right thing has its own rewards beyond delivering for a community or living up to our potential. It might even just help you out in terms of holding that office or gaining that office. Yeah, great. Appreciate that. Chief.
Welcome to Marshalltown.
Thank you.
So my name is Mike Tupper, and I have the coolest job in Marshalltown because I get to serve as the police chief here. So before I talk about Marshalltown, I do have to claim my Texas roots. I was born in Mineral Wells, Texas.
Wow.
I won't say when, it was a long time ago. But welcome to Marshalltown. So my wife and I actually made the deliberate decision of choosing Marshalltown about 8 years ago, and I was given a great opportunity to come here and serve as a police chief in Marshalltown. I've been in law enforcement for 27 years, all in Iowa. The last 15 years, I've served 2 communities now as police chief. We chose to come here because Marshalltown looks like the rest of the world. We love the diversity. We love the opportunities that it provides for us to learn things. As an old guy, I like to learn things, but what I really love about it is I have a 6-year-old son who's going to be in first grade at Hoagland Elementary this year, and he'll spend the entire year in a majority-minority school classroom, and it's great for him.
Yeah.
He is learning so much. He knows kids that speak other languages. He's having an opportunity every day to learn about other cultures that I didn't have growing up in Dubuque, Iowa. So it's just a wonderful experience. And we have a very safe community here, and it has nothing to do with me, by the way. It has everything to do with the people that live here.
Yeah.
And what I love about Marshalltown is the volunteer spirit and the fact that we take care of each other. And what we do at the police department is simple. We go out into the community and we try to build relationships and get to know people and build partnerships and collaborations, and that's what Marshalltown is doing a great job of, partnerships and collaborations. As a law enforcement officer for the past 27 years, I'm not an elected official, so I can say this. I've watched Democrats and Republicans kick this can down the street and use it as a political talking point to raise money and garner votes. This is an issue. Immigration is an issue that can be fixed, as the mayor said. You put 20 people in the room and you don't let them come out until it's solved. But it can be fixed, and I'm hopeful that with the candidates that are running for president, some of the things that I'm hearing you say, that we're on the right track to maybe moving in a positive direction so that we can finally resolve this issue. Thank you.
Let me just add one thing to what you said. Thank you, Chief. And it kind of relates to what Representative Smith said about your electoral prospects. You just do the right thing, and good things will follow. One of the arguments against moving forward on immigration has been security and safety. Yeah, Beto, we'd love to do that. It makes all the sense in the world. But first we got to secure our communities, make them safe. The implication being immigrants are inherently dangerous or violent, unfortunately reinforced by people who are in power and in office right now. We know immigrants commit crimes at a lower rate, and you're a great example. We know that when immigrants do not fear local law enforcement, they're more likely to work with local law enforcement to solve or prevent crimes in the first place. And so, as you were saying, Representative Smith, if we were just to do the right thing, we would actually improve the safety and security of our communities without having to militarize the border or put up walls or put kids in cages or make us afraid of one another. And I think offering the example of Marshalltown, El Paso, Texas, which is one of the safest cities in America, our sheriff, Richard Wiles, will tell you, not despite, but as you just said, because of immigrants who chose to come here, who are just as, if not more intent on ensuring this community stays safe. What a great example to share with the rest of the country. Let's do the right thing, and not only will we live up to our values, will also make us more secure and safer than we already are. So really appreciate that point. Thank you.
Very good. And the chief downplays how much he's had an impact on this town. Really, you know, the Citizens Academy had like 60 people in it this year. It's crazy, busy.
It's great.
And the outreach with the coffee with the cop, that sort of thing, getting our liaison person with the school district. There's been an integration of the police and community in this city better than anyone I've ever known. So thank you.
Awesome.
Sue Cahill.
I'm Sue Cahill. I have lived in Marshalltown for 30 years, so have really kind of watched this immigration process. I'm an educator and I sit on the city council. As an educator, some of the best things that I have seen, I was a kindergarten teacher for 12 years and worked in the same school, the dual language school. And the joy that I see when I go into my dentist's office and the hygienist is a girl I had in kindergarten. When we had the Iowa caucuses the last time in 2016, I saw a kindergartner, a girl I had in kindergarten, and she was now 18, 19, and she brought her parents in to participate. It just brings me joy to see the students and their families that have formed a relationship in our community and want to be that active part of it. It is, I have just had that joy of developing those relationships with families, for working in the same school for 18 years and watching it grow and develop. And when in the early times of our change in our community, there was a lot of distrust and all, but we have come that whole generation, and the students that have come out of the school district, the families, are one of the most precious things we have in our community here.
I was told, and correct me if I heard wrong, that at that point, 20 plus years ago, there was a decision for the community to make. Either we want to continue to see immigrants come here, or we want to even maybe encourage the employers of those immigrants to go to another community because we don't want immigrants to be here. So there was almost a conscious choice the community had to make, and it sounded like you and other members of the community at that time made the right choice consciously, and maybe not according to the conventional wisdom of America at that moment or at this moment. Is that true? Was there that kind of civic conversation going on at the time?
I think so. I know that our church had a family-to-family program where our family met with another family that was an immigrant family, and we just had dinner and we had potlucks together and went to each other's homes to try and cross some of those bridges that are normal in any changing situation. Now on my block, I have the children, the family next door that's from the Myanmar area, and the children are just so lovely. They call me Miss Sue, and they just always come over and use my driveway to ride their bikes in, and it's lovely. And on the other side, I have families who are from some of the other African countries, as well as Hispanic families, just within my neighborhood, within my district. I compliment the community for having the services to encourage that. The organizations like Immigrant Allies, the welcoming of the Chamber of Commerce, to encourage our businesses to be active. Again, I sometimes say I'm not sure where we would be if we did not have the population that we do. I think we would have had to close schools. I think that our situation would be greatly changed.
Thanks.
One of the best things that this town did was recognize that there was a disparity between two middle schools. We coached a mock trial team at one of them. The other one didn't have a mock trial team. The one had track uniforms, the other didn't have a track team. And overnight, the school district said, okay, every 6th grader is going to this school, every 7th grader is going to that school. Absolutely integrated overnight, seamlessly. I mean, that was really a pretty cool part in our history. And it's time for Dr. Schutte to talk about the school district.
I greatly appreciate all the positive references to the school and the experiences that people have. I have a little bit of a unique distinction because I'm a graduate of our school district in high school, and I left for 30 plus years to work in other places in Iowa and live, and then had the honor to be chosen to come back to lead and to work with the employees of the district. When I graduated in the largest class yet to graduate from Marshalltown High School, I could name every student of color in the class of 518 graduates because there weren't very many. And so to be able to come back to this community it more closely mirrors the national demographic than it does the Iowa demographic, and see the beautiful mosaic and humanity, and then to be able to also see the hard work and effort of not just the school district, but everything we've heard about the community coming together in an effort to make sure that all kids, no matter what their circumstances or position for success beyond the high school, whether it be college or career ready, has been something really special. As I'm sure you're aware, Iowa boasts and has for some time the highest graduation rate in the country at 91%. And despite significant challenges that are faced by our students and our families, whether it be socioeconomic or otherwise, fear, trauma, and all that, we have 88%. So in Iowa, that's looked at as something less than by the people from outside, but nationally it should be celebrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not where we want to be. We want to blow past that national average, but it takes time to figure out how can we acquire the necessary resources to provide equity for our students, for our families, and for our communities to, again, put our kids in a position of being able to pursue their hopes and dreams. I've never been more excited in my 35th year of education to be where I'm at, doing what I'm doing, and again, it's the collective effort of everybody here. The local businesses and industries have been amazing with their partnership. The volunteerism that has been mentioned by people has been amazing here, and it truly does take a village to raise a child. I'm an example of that, and I'm so glad that Marshalltown is still as great as it ever was. It's different than it was, but it's still as great, if not greater, than when I was growing up, in my opinion. And it's really unfortunate because one of the challenges is based on perceptions, based on negativity in the media. We have a lot of our families that choose not to have their kids educated here. And 90% of them are white, 90% of them are affluent or not on free and reduced lunch. And so our charge is to prove to them the value of not only a diverse education, but a first-rate education as it relates to positioning kids for success. I truly believe we have the best product available in that regard, but convincing everybody of that. And unfortunately for many of them, they won't see till their kids move on to other places in the world what they were passing up and not coming to Marshalltown.
It's interesting, several parents, including the mayor, have said that in addition to the classroom instruction, their children growing up with children from other parts of the world was part of the value of the education. You said your graduating class, did you say it was 518?
Yes.
And what is the graduating class going to be this year? Or what was
somewhere
it?
Between 300 and 350. So
and is that because of families that have peeled off from the public school system or lack of growth in the community?
You know, a big part of it would be families that peel off because we consistently have around 500 students that are residents of Marshalltown go elsewhere, but I think part of it is just the demographics of Iowa and our country. I happen to be in school at the height of Iowa's student population, and there was a significant decline, you know, over a period of time, and now it's leveled off.
And one other question. So, very struck by the dual language program, and my kids are in a dual language school in El Paso, and math is taught in English, math is taught in Spanish. They're just so much more competitive, I'd like to think, for being able to do everything in both languages. You mentioned the volunteerism. Ms. Sue was talking about what her family has done, and we were at the community college. John, the director, said that we have somebody who was a corporate attorney who left that world to come teach English as a second language, someone who is a dental surgeon who is spending their time in the school. So it wasn't just the woman I met from Spain who's trying to better integrate, it's the community welcoming her. But these students, when they graduate from your high school, if they do not have citizenship or documentation, we met some of them last night in Des Moines. They're really struggling with affording higher education, coming forward for fear of being apprehended or their parents apprehended. How do we connect them with that next level of education? What do you see as best practices? I recognize the answer is to legalize their presence, to ensure that they have citizenship or a path to citizenship. But as we wait to get those 20 members of Congress in the same room, what are you seeing that's working here in Marshalltown or in the state that we could point to as an example?
Yeah, well, I think it's the community collaboration and it's the partnerships that we have. Again, we don't have all the answers to that, but it's trying to figure out how to pull resources together in order to help kids move forward. Our partnership with Immigrant Allies has, I think, been a big part of that. Our partnership with Iowa Valley Community College and Marshalltown Community College, which has recently received a designation as being Hispanic supportive school, I believe, something along those lines. I think it's definitely challenging because there are roadblocks to success. We can get kids, and we don't know. I mean, any student that walks in our door is our student, and we're going to do everything that we can to put them in a position of post-secondary success. I think one of the great things that Iowa has done for many years now is provided a senior year plus program where our students in high school can have access to a minimum of 15 hours of college credit if positioned in order to access that either through our school district, many of which our teachers are qualified to teach those classes, or through MCC. And so putting kids in a position, kind of springboarding them into that next step, and we're currently embarking on hoping to open similar doors with our local businesses and industries by providing high-quality work-based learning experiences while still in high school.
Without regard to status,
Correct.
right? As you said, in public
Correct.
schools, you're not asking that. They're in your classroom, they're your student.
Correct, exactly.
Great, thank you.
And also treating the colleges that have committed to in-state tuition for students that are literally Iowans, regardless of status, really helps open those doors.
There's also strong
MCC,
partnerships, right? With
MCC, so when I graduated in 2007, I actually graduated with one of your daughters as well. I was going to go to college, but my mom couldn't afford my tuition, plus my brother, who was right behind me. So I dropped out of school. I did take advantage and took some classes while I was in high school, so that helped me a little bit. But what I realized now, going back to school 10 years later, that there's a lot more in place. Like MCC has all of these programs that, regardless of your status, there's private scholarships, there's the MEP program that is now in place as well as many of the advisors at MCC are willing to really take a time and look into what kind of plan or what can we do to provide you with an education, which when I graduated, that wasn't in place. Yeah, I mean, we were all kind of fighting each other for those very few scholarships available, and of course, not everybody got it.
We really benefit from federal programs too, like Upward Bound and Science Bound and Gear Up and all of those systems that are out there. Iowa State University partners with us, and I think the goal is for kids who are ready to get them as many credits as we can while they're in our care in high school, so that it is less of a burden on their families, and it's already set them on the trajectory of continuing this path if and when they're ready, because it's hard for parents who've navigated the system themselves to navigate college for their children, and then to think for our immigrant families whose parents didn't even do our K-12 public system to support their children in college. It's just such a daunting task for so many.
The school board and school superintendent have been very good about identifying the students that aren't going to college too and making them future ready. So they're trying to ramp up the programs that will allow them to help work in the factories and places like that if they don't go on to college. Despite the challenges that we have with language, and I think we're up to 40, 50 different languages spoken in the school district and one of our places of employment, the graduation rate is actually going up here, which is a credit to the community and the school district. And then we have the prototype STEM program in the state of Iowa, which is we're pretty proud of. Other people are trying to figure out how did we do it here and how can they do it there.